No one leaves home unless home is prone to bombs and drones, fighting back with sticks and stones, following maps to ships and shores. Freedom is not free for the millions who are forced to flee, watching their ships capsize on the Mediterranean Sea. You see, every refugee doesn't want to be another stateless, passport-less mess made to feel less unless and until the real hell of their horrors are revealed, the victims cannot hail, thus we make this penny appeal. For what shall we tell the child who lost their parents to bombshells and shrapnel that we cannot help because our hearts are harder than boiled eggshells? Though you and I may lie and try our best to close our eyes, we must realize that every trial is a prize for those who try. And it is by design the divine does not place burdens which are malign. And if you save one life, it's like you have saved all of mankind. And being kind is a lifeline to our prophetic guidelines, inclined to headlines of skylines filled with dust of landmines. History books will tell the tales of females in veils setting sail, leaving trails of imprisoned males being tortured in cold cells. But this whole dunya is a jail, seeing every detail like braille, where we fail to prevail or place these good deeds on our scales. And this is no fiction, going the distance on this mission, fulfilling a bigger vision, driven by the ultimate conviction. All aboard this train and lanes want the answer, better listen. Take this small change and make a big difference.
Welcome to Conversation 473, Monday 15th June. By the end of 2018, 70.8 million individuals were forcibly displaced worldwide as a result of persecution, conflict, violence, or human rights violations. That was an increase of 2.3 million people over the previous year. And the world's forcibly displaced population remain at a high record. 25.9 million refugees in the world, the highest ever seen. 41.3 million internally displaced people and 3.5 million asylum seekers. New displacement remains very high. One person becomes displaced every 2 seconds. Less than the time it takes to read a sentence. That's 30 people who are newly displaced every minute. 1 in every 108 people globally is either an asylum seeker, internally, or a displaced refugee. Now, those are some very startling statistics. But nonetheless, it's to put context to our discussion tonight. Tonight we go deeper into the asylum seekers and refugee situation. There's a need to respond quicker, to deal with the issues with more empathy and compassion. We are even greeted by the news that Grenada has had to deal with that situation in recent times. And there's even an unsolved issue right now. So this episode, we are going to dive into that issue. We even have a few clips tonight. We're going to share greater insight on the whole refugee situation. So tonight, as usual, we have Rolanda McQueen is here. Rolanda, how are you? How was the day so far?
Hi, lovely. Thank you very much. It's been a great day. Thank you. How was yours?
Well, it was good. I got to see you in real life today. It's good to spend time with the Conversation 473 family. And also joining us today is our clinical psychotherapist and Conversation 473 family, Leslie Carrington. What's up, Leslie? How are you? How was the day today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
Well, today I'm doing good, but not so good because I've been feeling kind of sad today. Doing some research and really getting an eye opener as to what our brothers and sisters have been going through across the world in terms of being displaced. So. I don't feel too good about that situation. So guys, stick with us. Everyone is on. A short word from our sponsors, and then we jump right into it. Conversation 473.
It is time for Grenada to define for herself what independence means.
What has happened here this morning has made me feel confident to face the future with fortitude, strength, and with hopefulness.
People begin to understand that our lives don't have to be so hard. Things can change, you know.
We are all currently facing the same crisis and very similar challenges, and no one can afford to be myopic or bigoted in this fight. We have no choice but to work together.
We have heard the call, and we are determined to come out of this pandemic greater than we entered.
Okay, welcome back, guys. So, Rolanda, what you been up to? What you really been up to in terms of life and your usual fight for justice and standing up for those who are unable to stand up for themselves?
Well, one of the good news, the refugee that we had has got his refugee status. The United Nations gave it to him last week, so he's, very pleased. I knew he was going to get it anyway. There has been a lot of rumors going around by people that seems to be just talking. But I think there is only two people or three people that has really know this was there in the beginning of the story. It started, this refugee thing started with you being arrested when you should be at home, you calling me to bail you. I'm seeing this young guy trembling for his life. I am thinking, you saying to me, Miss McQueen, you've got to help. I'm saying, I can't, if I do anything, they will go. There she goes again. I just had a fight with Spice Mass. I can't afford to have another fight. Me contacting Earl Maitland and Brian and Kalistra saying, I can't do this on my own. All you have to help me. But when I spoke to Earl, I said to him, well, I don't want my name to be mentioned, so you have to break the story because I don't want to, thinking back now, Kitaka, I always say I'm not going to be victimized. And I don't know if this thing in Grenada is catching on, that people, where I'm getting, I've always had a big mouth. And all of a sudden, I was hiding behind Earl and Kalistra, pushing them ahead and saying, you speak, I'm scared of speaking because the Grenada public may crucify me, and putting them in the fire in line. And I am happy, and I am also to say Brian was the first one, and also Ron, even every time I speak about this, it makes me very emotional. And, but the person and with Kalistra, and we all fighting for this young man. And I think we haven't really told the story, and we're hearing little bits here and then. So I think we owe it to our listeners to tell them exactly what went on. I don't know, Kitaka, maybe you should start because you is the one that started all the trouble.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because, okay, so I'll say this. At the first day of curfew, actually, when they announced that you are not supposed to be outside after 7 o'clock, I decided to take a little walk within my community. No, that was not a sanctioned walk, so I had to pay the consequences. I was met by the police, who pulled me up. Rasta man, what you doing outside? This is curfew and so on. My response was not the best. I was taken into custody, and I was subsequently placed in a cell. No, I was in the cell alone for the entire night. I was not able to sleep. I was just thinking and just reflecting on life and so on. But at the crack of dawn, the cell was open, and a young man came into the cell and went in to have a shower in the bathroom facility inside the cell. I mean, I didn't really make anything of it. I thought, well, maybe it just it didn't really occur to me because I was like in my headspace trying to think about, okay, I can't tell my mother this because my mother would be, she would kick storm and so on. I'm trying to get out, thinking about my business, thinking about so many other things. But then I saw the young man took a shower and put back on the same clothes that he had on and had his towel, and he walked up to the door. Now, I mean, I am a very communicative person. I like to talk and so on. So I kind of was moved to reach out to the guy and say like, "What's up? What's popping? What going on?" And then I realized the accent was not of Grenada. Then he told me, he's from Africa. He told me that he's seeking asylum. He told me about, his family, not knowing whether or not his family is alive or dead. How he has been at the police station for over 2 or 3 weeks there, sleeping on the ground, being heckled and teased and so on by the officers. And I mean, but he still maintained a strong and a very composed, demeanor. He even said to me, say, you guys don't know what you have. You only know it when you have lost it. You see, like, who feels it knows it. And, he already was quoting a lot of scriptures and so on as well. But then, like, in that moment, I mean, my spirit was moved because I grew up in a very Afrocentric home. My dad grew me up not thinking that I was a Grenadian, but an African. So meeting an African brother in distress is like if I'm in distress. So I gave him a vow there at that moment. I said, hey, I don't know if I could help you, but I will do my best. I must find somebody that could be able to help you. I mean, and it was like a piece of divine intervention because the first person I think about as well was you, Miss McQueen. And I called you, and you was on your way to bail me out. But even while trying to get his number and so on, you see, he was kind of doing it in a discreet way because I didn't really know that the whole situation was going on with him and the officers and so on. But I was able to smuggle my number to him, and he was able to contact me. And subsequently, after leaving the police station, I said to Miss McQueen, I don't know what can be done, but you have to help the young man. Whether it's you have to give him a job, or we have to find a way to get him out, or whatever, we need to do something. I may not be able to help, but I know you will be able to help. And from there, I mean, you stepped in, Ewell stepped in, Kalishta stepped in, and to the point where we were able to get that young man out of the police station safely and soundly, in a shelter, living and being a functional member of society. And to get this news today where you see that he now got his official refugee status, it makes me feel, a sense of joy because we never start to bring that story out because like as we grew up in Mama Can and Munich and so on and our parents tell us when we do things we don't really do things to come and brag and say we did that and so forth. But I feel happy now to know that he got his status and that our hard work paid off and he has a better place to rest his head because I knew
But
this young man been through a lot in a traumatic way.
but Kitaka, we have to really tell after you told me, when I remember exactly the spot you told me because we were driving up on the fort and you told me about it. And I remember I was turned and all I could see was Africans, my brothers and sisters, dying in the Mediterranean Sea. Because these people and them, before they get here, they go through a lot. It's not something where, like, we go into America, we book our tickets and we disappear and we hide.
Ms. McQueen, since you said that, remember we have some clips. We have some clips to show, and I think as you're saying that now would be the best time to run one of those clips because I think it's important for people to get what's really going on. So I'm about to cue them up right now as I speak. Because indeed it was very traumatic, and I think we have Leslie here with us to be able to go a little bit more into it. to really delve into the situation. So I'm trying to set up the clip here. 1 second.
Should I continue? Yeah.
Yeah, continue, Ms. McQueen.
Yeah, I know what they go through. I know sometimes people put their children because they cannot make the journey, and they send the kids. In England, there are so many children, black children, that are refugees. There is a very famous one called Emmanuel Jal, and he was a child soldier, and when you hear what these people been through, you have to have the heart of a beast not to be able to have sympathy with them. I remember when I called him after I spoke to you, Kitaka, the first thing I thought was, if he was fake and I go and I make a fuss about it, I could imagine the backlash, but I thought I couldn't. I phoned him up. Well, we couldn't phone because the police and them was taking his phone from him. But when I communicate with him and I ask him certain questions, I was thinking as well, maybe he would, maybe some con or whatever it is, because, we've been brainwashed to believe that anytime an African needs help or a black person needs help, we are conning somebody or we are some thieves or something like that. And then I said to him, what would you like me to bring for you? What would you like? He told me he'd been in there, I think, for about 2 weeks. I said, can I bring you anything? And Kitaka, I said to you before, and every time I said I get very tearful, he said, all I need is a Bible. Because in my travels, I've lost my Bible. And he told me he was a guy of faith. He told me before he came on his journey, he went up to the mountain and he prayed, and his pastor and them prayed that he will have a safe journey. And I said, a Bible? I said, do you want anything else? He said, no. And I thought, where am I going to get a Bible? I've only had one Bible in my house. Where am I going to get the Bible? And as I turned around in my room, I have no idea, but there was a Red Testament right on my table. If I tell you, Kitaka, I don't know how it get there. I have not seen it, but it was there. And I took it and I said, if I don't get to see him, I need to write a message in it for him. And I wrote his name and I said, God knows you by your name. Because I thought if I never sees him again, that word alone would remind him that God does not forget him. He knows who he is. God would call him by his name. And I took it. I was going to the police station that morning, and I was very nervous, because you had to have a lot of guts to go. And when I went, I bought towels, I bought toothpaste and soap, things that he would need, and some water. And the policewoman that greeted me, she wasn't very welcoming, but I thought, I didn't bother about it, and I bought things for him. And I came back, but before that, Kitaka, when I saw him there, when I came to bail you remember I said to you, I saw this young man. I'm going back to when I when I went to bail Kitaka. He was sitting in the corner, and he was so stressed. And being a mother or maybe a parent, you look out for that. And I said to Kitaka, what is he doing in there? And I thought, there he goes. Maybe he's another Kitaka going for a walk in the night and he get caught. And because I saw the nervousness, there was a nervousness in him that I saw. And Kitaka said, Ms. McQueen, when we get outside, I will tell you what is going on. Anyway, I was communicating with him. I got Kalistra on, and I tell Kalistra, listen, please, we have to help this guy. At that time, Brian wrote to the UN, Ron wrote to the, people was writing everywhere, but at that time, I'm still staying in the background. because I didn't want anybody to say I am making problems. Anyway, it came to it that he went on a hunger strike. And when he told me the things that was going on with treating him, it was sad. He went on a hunger strike. He was taken into hospital. And then he wanted to kill him. Sorry. He wanted to kill himself. So he was on suicide watch. And when somebody telling you somebody is on suicide watch, you know, I start to think now as a mother, because he don't know where maybe his mother must thought he's dead, because he hasn't had any contact with them. So they must think he is not alive, because he don't know how to get in contact with them. It's like everyone on his father's side has died, every one of them. So anyway, I went the following, on the Sunday, and at that time I phoned the Grenada Human Rights, Callistra phone. We have phoned everybody that we thought could help. Nobody answered the phone. No one. Nobody tried to help. I called lawyers. The lawyers and them did not want to have anything to do with it. Nobody. When I call lawyers, I say, please, help, I'll pay. Let us try and do something. None of the lawyers, none of the human rights people, nobody was interested. So but I made a promise to this young man that I will not give up on him. I will be there for him. Anyway, when we get to the Sunday, I had a phone call, and there was so much noise in the back, shouting, and then I realized it was the police. And they said, oh, they don't know what's going on with this young man. And I said, please, can I come down to the station to speak to him? And they said to me, yes, I can come down. Anyway, I phoned Callistra, but because of COVID, she said, listen, I've got my young son and I don't want to go into the police station. I called Earl was not in the country. Then I called Kitaka, and Kitaka said he's just on his way out, but he will come with me. And I called back Earl. I said, Earl, please, I need somebody. I need a strong person to come with me. I can't face that on myself. And he said, oh, well, why don't you call Miss Willis? She's a lawyer. And I said, well, I've spoken to her before, and she said, no, she wasn't, she couldn't handle it because she's not that type of lawyer. So he said, well, listen, I'm going to call her again. And he did, and she agreed to come down with me. When we got to the station, it was mayhem. There was police everywhere. And this boy was so exhausted. Kitaka, he could not stand. He was so weak. There was nothing in him. They had to, Miss Lewis was with me. She had to ask them, please, let him sit down. He had no end, like everything drained out of him. But then he got paranoid. He did not believe it was me. I was the one speaking to him on the phone. So he refused to speak to me. And he thought, because remember, coming from a country like that, anytime, because I think the immigration was there, and I don't know where they wanted to take him. But when you're living in a war-torn country, anytime the police say they're going to go with you, that means they are going to go and kill you. So he panicked. And if you saw,
Miss McQueen, I was in the cell with a young man, and I could tell you like how the young man was like, and the story he told me. Imagine, I didn't have any way to empathize with that. And imagine someone telling you like, in my village, like everybody got slaughtered, like total carnage. Even when he sent the pictures to me after, when I spoke to him and I got his number on WhatsApp, and he sent the pictures to me, it was horrific. I had to just tell him like, stop, don't send more. I get the picture and I send your number so you guys could talk and we'll deal with it, because it was brutal, and to still be standing and to still be facing what he faced. But for me, like what really stood out for me was his strength, and his faith, and how deeply spiritually rooted and grounded he was. Because anybody else facing that would have already broken and would have taken their lives. Because what he has been through, where he was, to the issue to being here and still facing the same situation here, he trusted no one. There was a sense of paranoia. Can imagine you're coming from a country where anybody that the next person could be somebody to kill you, and to come here and to be under the same kind of situation. It's very traumatic.
When I was there, Kitaka, he turned around. I mean, I remember, can you imagine? I thought I go there now to free this guy. And the police and them saying, and Miss Willis said, well, is he charged? They said, no, he's not charged. And saying, you can come with me. I will take responsibility. Come to my home. And he does not want to come. But you know, one of the most, one of the saddest things he said, he looked at one of the officers and he said, you could deny me on earth, but you could never deny my passage in heaven. He said, you cannot deny me when I'm going to meet God. And that really touched me, that, you know, he had the strength because he thought he was going to die, and to say to somebody, you can't deny me heaven, but you could deny me maybe in earth. And you know, he came, the guy, he cannot open a bottle of water. And he's a young guy, 25. When to open water like this, you know, he just cannot even open water. We contacted Brian Grimes contacted the UN the same day. We got an answer. And at that time I was frightened. But when I was in the police station, that's where we come now, about the second refugee. I was told by Mr. Joseph that there was another refugee in prison that'd been up there for 11 months. And I said to him, I will take him. I will give him a job. Because you know something? This is not the first refugee I have helped out. There is another person that I have helped. And that is the reason why that person went to the Prime Minister. And you know, people, I don't believe the Prime Ministers know. And immediately that person was running for their life. Imagine, Grenadian people that is out there. Imagine you have one child, and somebody is trying to kill that child. Your one child, somebody is trying to kill. And immediately, this person had to be sleeping from house to house, they and the family. You know, they said to me one night, they were sleeping and they heard something walking on the galvanized and they thought, that is it. They have found their hiding place and they would be dead in any minute. I believe, you know, there is a lot of things here and people would turn around and say, no, but that person came to Grenada. The Prime Minister immediately understood what was going on and there was no problem. So I believe there is a lot of, when these things and them happen here, the people at the top that's supposed to know about it, nobody tells them. When the United Nations, when I spoke to them, Brian spoke to them, Brian Grimes, and they said, Grenada, I do not think sign on to the convention, but it's like having a battered woman's home. But Grenada is a safe place. And you know, there was very shock that Grenada, the way Grenada behaved towards that refugee, because they said we have had refugees in Grenada before, and they treated them very nicely. Now I'm asking myself, is he being treated that way because he is black? Would we have had an Indian or a white man in prison for 3 weeks, well, nearly a month? There was no mattress. He didn't have a mattress. He didn't have a cover. They was taking his phone away from him. They was laughing at him. And then he said to me, they was asking him, are you here are you a drugs? Are you here? Are you a drug smuggler? Do you deal in drugs? He said, and they were laughing and saying, the things that he went through in there. I'm not saying that to criticize our police officers because we know they do a great job. What I'm here to say is when we do face with something like that again, we have to deal with it better. When you look at that is the reason why if we do not respect ourselves, how do we expect other people to respect us? If we are going to treat our people that way, how are we going? When you see young men are running and police are shooting them in the back, and you see a brother, listen, I did my DNA test and I come from West Africa. This young man could have family here in Grenada. The respect that he has. But something, Grenadians has reached out. But one of the things, Kitaka, nobody, the human rights group hasn't called me. The United Nations hasn't contacted me. Nobody has contacted me to find out how this young man is doing. When I spoke to the UN, I said, listen, this young guy need counseling to come out from a village running for your life. And that is where Leslie will come in. Leslie, the stress that I go through, every time I speak about it, I cry. Can you imagine what this young man is going through, not knowing if any of his family is alive?
Well, that's what you're going through is considered to be vicarious trauma. So, by hearing it, picturing it sounds like you had a very visceral response to what was shared with you. Like you felt it deeply within your body. For refugees, unfortunately, the scenario or the story shared is very common because he's a refugee. He did not come to Grenada on a vacation or because, he thought it'd be great to come over here and enjoy the tropical, views and beach. He was escaping death. He was escaping torture. He was looking for safety, for sanctuary. And unfortunately, he was met with unkindness. Um, he was met with difficulty. He was met with closed a closed border. Like he was met and he was met with individuals or circumstances that made him feel as though he was not wanted, although his story was not valid. So that was compounded trauma for this young man.
So Leslie, like in a situation like this, how critical is it for that young man to seek some or to get access to that level of counseling and therapy and so on to kind of massage his way back into being a functional member of society?
Um, is paramount. And I believe Rolanda did state that he said that at one point he felt like committing suicide, which is a pretty common scenario for people who are seeking asylum. Due to the post traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety that they often suffer, um, the situation makes it really hard for them to cope because think about it. Here you are witnessing the most horrific crimes in front of you day after day after day after day. You're seeing people slaughtered, women raped, babies cut up, houses burnt to the ground with people still in them. Uh, that takes a lot of a toll on someone to witness that and then to feel that there's no escape, that at any minute, any second, the same thing's going to happen to you. So they are always on alert. They're never in a relaxed frame of mind because they're always like looking to see what's going to happen, who's coming after them. Um, so it is just a very traumatic situation to have to deal with. So when they're not given the appropriate interventions, counseling, someone to talk to, some compassion, a safe space somewhere where they can actually sleep or close their eyes or relax and not think that they're going to die at any second, it just keeps them in that hyper vigilant mode that eventually tears at their physical and at their mental well-being.
And if it's interesting because I have a short clip here I want to run to give people a clear understanding of what individuals who are displaced and who will be seeking asylum and refuge and so on go through on a day-to-day basis. 1 second. Are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I can see, but I can't hear anything.
More than at any time since the Second
Kitaka, we're not hearing any.
You guys not hearing?
Find yourself trying to build a refuge.
Okay.
You hear now?
Yes.
I don't even today where are we going to sleep? There's no home, no house.
Can you still be a child when war is forcing you to grow up? And what do the children think is most important when their world has been turned upside down?
I just want to go back to school and complete my studies. I want to be in those lives before.
4 children show us what life is like when you are forced to flee your home.
The life of refugees is not that good. There is no future beyond that. Only you eat, you sleep. That is the end.
And it's McQueen Leslie. I mean, it's very interesting as well because I mean I was doing some research today and I want to share that research with you guys. They're saying here that 76% of refugee adolescents were not in secondary school, 61% of refugee children, and less than 50% of refugee children in low-income countries attend primary school. Globally, 91% of the children attend primary school, so that's children. That is a large percentage of the refugee population is children, and individuals are not able to even get access to live that level of life because your life is constantly running away from the next threat that could potentially kill you. But Ms. McQueen, back to you. I mean, right now, having rescued refugees before, the asylum seekers, what moves are you making now to assist the one that's at the Home Majesty's prison for over 11 months?
I have written to the Prime Minister, and I strongly believe that when he hear about this young man, he is going to help. I have offered to take him in. I'm not looking for any financial help. I would support them. So not to say I'm not looking for any financial help from the government. I would look after them. I would give them accommodation, So all I want, because remember, Kitaka, most people out there, most of these countries in Africa this war are not bought on by themselves. The war that is going on in his country, Africa is a very wealthy continent, is fought between the English and the French for the wealth in his country. They're not poor. It's just because Europe want it. So the same thing. What is going on in and they having the corrupt governments. You see, people, corruption. When government is corrupt, this is the type of things that happens to the people because all what they care about is money. It does not matter how much money they get, they want more. It's like somebody on crack cocaine. More they get, more they want. More they get, more they want. That is what corruption causes. Look at it that way. For example, we say we have oil in Grenada. Look at what's happening in Guyana. Oil. If we decide we get oil, one government decide we're not going to leave because we want to stay. They start fighting. England may decide or America may decide. Look at what's happening to Venezuela. This can easily happen to Grenada. And this is what corruption causes, right? And that is the reason why people have to stand up. And it's what I find, Kitaka, with a lot of Grenadians, with the slave mentality, anytime they hear the word Africa mentioned, they have their nose, they skin their nose and they talk, oh, African this and African that. I have been to Africa. I have traveled in Africa. And when you go to, I've been to Ghana, I've been to South Africa, I've been to Nigeria, I've been to Kenya. When you go there, you see people that looks just like you. You would look at somebody and you would swear that is Kitaka, or you swear that is Rolanda. We look exactly the same. I remember when I went to Elmina Castle to visit where the slaves went. Kitaka, the pain that you feel when you hear African music, everything makes you cry. When you see, I remember when you see the sun and you see the people that look like you and you see their smile. But one of the things which is strange enough, when I went to Africa, before I went to Africa, if anybody had said to me that I wasn't black, I would have been very offended. When I went to Africa, I realized the only thing that was left was the color of my skin. Everything, I was so brainwashed, right? And I thought, wow, that made me sad. You mean the only thing I have left, when the way you walk, they know you wasn't from there. The way you move is like, as I say, is like a wolf in a sheep clothing. Right. When you see the way the people smile, and Africans are nice people, they are welcoming. They would share with you. It doesn't matter the liquor what they have, they will give it to you. If you see, when you go and you see like all the mud huts that has been there for hundreds of years, and you see the older people and how they treat with the respect, then you would realize why people want Africa. Then you would realize why we're such a forgiving people. But Skitaka, I do not want to come from an island that would welcome any other nationality, any other race, but my own people. I couldn't stand that. And that is the reason why I'm here.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, even from me, and I think it brings us to a greater issue, and I'll speak to the leaders of the Caribbean. I mean, I think even now, more so than ever, it's imperative, it's very critical and crucial for our Caribbean people, even right now, as we're speaking about Black Lives Matter and so on, to really look to our nation state, look to Africa, send that helping hand and that connective hand to Africa, even the Caribbean leaders, like, in this day and age, I have to go to England to get a flight to go to Africa when I'm supposed to be close to Africa here and get a straight flight. We're supposed to be trading with Africa. We're supposed to have that level of strength and connection. You understand? Even within ourselves here now, we have to treat our black brothers and sisters better. Even as we are on the Black Lives Matter and the Black Power movement, it's not just about protesting. It's about on the everyday journey, how much love and compassion you show to your black brothers and sisters. Even now, as we have the refugee or the asylum seeker at Her Majesty's prison, we have to show that common humanity for our black brothers and sisters, where we could give the individual a fair trial, so we could talk and see, okay, what's the matter, why you're here, where your documents, all these things, so that we could find a way for that individual to come out and have access to a life that is not filled with running and running and running and more trauma and more trauma. As the guy said to me when I was in the cell, who feels it knows it. And as you said, Miss McQueen, the greed for the oil, the greed for the resources, the greed for the money could make things switch in an instant, where that reality could be right at your doorstep. And if you are fleeing for your life, wouldn't you wish that someone else was there to hold you and take you in with open arms? So for me, what I'm really learning from this, Miss McQueen and Leslie, as you guys are here, the importance for us to see that shared humanity and live in love and be supportive to each other. I think that is very, 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 very critical.
Kitaka, there are people in Grenada. I have friends. There are white people in Grenada that came into Grenada on holiday and haven't been back. I have met a lot of them. Now, these two black guys came in and they asked for refugee status. They didn't come in and disappeared. Both of them. I have people, I know Europeans. I can tell you right now, 10 of them that came to Grenada, like Grenada, and stayed. Now, these two guys, come on, they came, they asked for refugee status. The other one in prison now, when he came, he went to the Red Cross. The Red Cross office was closed. He slept there that night, because I think it was, I can't remember if it was Emancipation Day, Earl would know better. He slept outside there. When the Red Cross office opened, he went and he asked for refugee status. He didn't come in here illegally. He went and he asked for refugee status, because if you come in from Africa, we belongs to the Commonwealth. You can come in without a visa. So they didn't come here illegally. He went and he asked for refugee. The Red Cross called immigration. The police and them arrested him and charged him for entering the country without a visa or whatever it is. They took him to court. The judge sent him for prison for 4 days. And nearly 12 months, he is still up there. You know something? This makes me angry. You know why it makes me angry? Because other people are coming in. It's because of this type of sick slave mentality that we have. Because it's black, it must be problem. Do you think, how many? I could go and call the police now and tell them about all the illegal white people that is in Grenada. And they will not bow an eyelid. They will not go, they wouldn't care. Why? This color, why our color is causing that? You know, and that is the reason why I said I would fight for him like an alley cat, because it is wrong and I cannot stand by and see injustice, because this is just so much injustice. I have a son, and I keep saying to people, I live in a country where black men are endangered species. And when they come here, we're supposed to welcome them and open up arms. But then again, there's a lot of young black guys up in Richmond Hill up there that are not supposed to be there, because we seem to be doing the work of our slave masters. They leave us here to do their work, and we will do it. We put them in prison for a little bit of weed, while white people, the white country, are making billions out of it. We will put our young men up there in prison. You'll put them up in prison because they're trying to hustle to make some money to pay for their little bus and things like that. These things and them have to stop. And the only thing, as I said, if Grenadians don't want to buy my water, that is fine, but I'm going to fight for my Grenadian, because it hurts me when I see these things on them. I don't even want to, I don't want to go there, right? I will stand up, and if I have to stand up and fight by myself, I will stand up and I will fight with them, because it's too much injustice.
Well, the conversation 473 family is definitely going to fight with you and stand up with you. I mean, I see all in the chat. Oh, Brian Grimes was there as well. But Brian Grimes says it's not Brian Grimes. You give Brian Grimes credit that he died
I
on
think it
himself.
is
Brian Joseph,
Brian
mastermind.
Joseph.
But Brian Grimes have to jump in and do what I have to do. But Leslie, as someone who is from the United States and who has been like even right now with all the riots and protests and so on going on around the country, like based on what Miss McQueen say, like how do you weigh in on this and what exists within like the Grenadian society and even some of the many Caribbean and other societies where there seem to be that sort of self-hate and a perpetuation of oppression of individuals of the same black race on each other. What do you say on this?
Well, that, and I think Rolanda touched on it. That's due to the history of slavery, colonialism, where systematically we were taught to hate ourselves. We were taught division, um, divide and conquer, uh, tearing apart of families. So that connection is just not there. However, when it comes to people who are not Black, primarily white, European, um, there's a reverence there for some they look up to. There's also a level of fear. If I try to intervene, or I report that white person for being in Grenada, illegally, what would be the outcome? Will I get in trouble with my superior? Where when it comes to a person of color, a Black person, an African, that fear doesn't exist. You know, they're more likely to exhibit more stringent measures with someone who looks like them as opposed to someone who doesn't. Similarly, in the US, as I think it's been shown and quoted, the majority of Black crime is perpetuated against Black people by Black people. So again, a Black person is more likely to kill another Black person, rob them, assault them, than they would a white counterpart. So again, and why systems have shown that the time, the prison time that you would get for assaulting or killing a person of color is significantly less than you would if you were to kill a white person, a European, a white American, etc. So those systems are in place to keep us divided, to keep us being more likely to harm our brothers and sisters, uh, because there's safety in that. There's a level of acceptance in those actions, unfortunately.
And that saddens me because it really saddens me and for me as well too. Like it's like the information is there, but it's like sometimes individuals get so distracted and again it's intentional again because if you're struggling to eat every day and you can't pay your bills and so on, your thought sometimes is taken over by the rat race, by where the next meal coming from, and you're constantly going at it, and that time to really sit back and pull back a bit and analyze and be reflective and to think about your brothers and sisters, to give them some love and so on, might be very limited. But brothers and sisters who are looking right now, I'm telling you, like the biggest way for us to really liberate and emancipate ourselves from that hamster wheel that we seem to be going around over and over is to let that love and that bond and communityness and that compassion shine within our families, to shine within our communities. And that we have to love ourselves and we have to love our neighbors and our brothers and sisters. That's the only way we'll be able to unite ourselves against those systems that are set up to keep us apart. And I think like even though like where fires are burning across the world and so on, like it's important for us as African people to reflect on that and to understand that we cannot continue going along as if it's business as usual.
But Kitaka, let me tell you something. What really makes me laugh? We, as a black people, we all sit down praying, going to church every day, saying we're waiting for Christ to come. If these two young men, because we're looking for the white man with the blue eyes, that is who our God is. If these two, they say in the Bible, it says they're saying we are the 12 tribes, the people in Africa, the Caribbean, and we would roam the world for 400 years, and then God would come and save us. Now, these two guys, if they were the Christ that we were looking for, Grenada, if these two young men were the God, you're going every Sunday to church, you're making confusion with the prime minister because of you didn't give the 7 days Adventist time to shop and you give it to the Catholic. Come on. If these two people was the Christ and you're going every Saturday and Sunday to preach for, you know where we would find them? In the prison or in the prison cell. And this is the reason why sometimes I doesn't want to open my mouth. We say we are a Christian country. What happened to our open door policy? I grew up, I lost my mother when I was 5 years old, and people was able to open their door and take me in. What happened to that? Have we become so selfish that we cannot open our door anymore? I live in a house where there was no lock on the door. When my adopted parents and them cook, they cook enough in case somebody is passing by, they can get piece of food. We could have one of our own rotting in prison, and the first thing you would hear somebody say, he is from Africa. We will open to a door. Look at in the Bible when they said, this man was whatever was passing by. That is the reason and who gave him, take out their shoes, and people will give him, people will feed them. When I was hungry, you gave me to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. What happened to this?
Okay.
What happened to that type of mentality?
So I would just like to piggyback off of what Kataka said previously, and a little bit of what Rolanda also stated. That sense of love and community is important, but it has to start with the individual, and that's why the history of slavery and colonialism plays such a heavy part on how we behave today. So before we can be loving and empathetic to each other, we have to love ourselves. And that is what's missing because we have been scapegoated for so long as a people, put down, demeaned. Rolanda touched on, the Jesus figure being blonde and blue eyes, that's the savior, that's the good. Angels are white. I mean, the subliminal messaging is all over, our society and in our history books. So to really come to a point within the individual where you can appreciate your African features, you can appreciate the divinity within, and you're not looking outside of yourself for this white Jesus, to save you. That takes a lot of self work and that takes a lot of growth. And it's up to the individual to really invest time in that process. So, for me personally, I think it'd be very challenging for us as a people to come into harmony as a group, as a collective, without first coming into harmony with ourselves and learning to love and accept our blackness, learning about our history, learning to appreciate Africa, our all of our homes. I mean, that's the home of civilization. It's just like it's just for black people. It's the home of civilization for everybody. So learning and accepting that, learning, accepting, our rich history, our inventors. I mean, so there's a process that I think begins with the individual and then moves, transitions into community.
Unless you made a point there, and it's an important point, because I was thinking about that this week, and I was even having a conversation with a colleague of mine. Even the fact of how we teach history in our schools and how we deal with African history and Caribbean history and so on. I mean, I think we really need to move away from most people when they talk about African history. The first thing that come in their mind is that traumatic experience of slavery. And like that is the first actual part they have in their mind as to Africa and themselves and their identity. And for me, I think that is the root of a huge problem as well, because I think Mutabaruka even put it to the best way. He said that slavery is an interruption of African history. It's not African history, it's an interruption. And even now, for us to go back beyond history, back to the decades ago to, the Dogons and go back to, the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, Sudan, the Gold Coast, Massa Musa, Shaka Zulu, way back, and really see like how the cradle of civilization started, how Africa was able to give the world all the sciences and the arts and all the things that the Europeans pirated and brought over and copied and corrupted and claimed that they invented. Show how Alexander the quote unquote great went in Africa and destroyed libraries and so on, and how if you go in England in the museum right now, you see more African artifacts than even in Africa. You understand? So for me, like you have to go right back, even right now, where the statues and so on are being defaced and burned down and destroyed in Europe. Like African people have to go and we have to claim our stuff in the museums and them as well and really piece together our history and really piece together ourselves so we could have that sense of pride and identity. Because the Marcus Garvey was trying to preach to him that self-confidence, that self-reliance, that confidence in our race and that pride to be black. Because when you think about black, you don't think about a slave. You think about a mathematician. You think about Imhotep and the philosophers and the astrologists and the builders and so on that build pyramids and build structures and build the societies that we have today. You understand? And when you think back and you could look back on your ancestors that did those things, you could feel a greater sense of pride within yourself and you could love yourself more. You don't feel ashamed of your blackness. You don't go and bleach up your face and them kind of thing. So for me, I agree with you, Leslie, like a massive re-education have to happen within our black community. So you could see pride and beauty and honor and respect yourself. And then we could unite and work together. So going back to our refugee brothers and sisters, when we see our brothers and sisters running away from them kind of thing, we have to help them. We have to see what we can do. Because if you're in that situation, you're going to want help. And as Ms. Marquin said, we always say that we are a Christian nation. Let us do what Jesus teaches us. Be our brother's keeper. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. You understand? Let's send out that open hand. Let's feed and take care. Let's feed the hungry. Let's take care of the sick and the young. That is our responsibility as Christians. You understand? So for me.
Kitaka, he said to me, I remember one of the other things he said to me, because he's finding it very, very difficult to understand why I would do that for him. He went into one of my apartments that I rent out. He has never slept on a bed in his life because they have always been running. To have a room, have a hot shower, he does not know that because they've been fighting that war since before he was born. When he went when I took him to the apartment, that again made him think maybe I was really going to hurt him, because why would I allow him to even go and stay somewhere so nice? And one of the things we have to remember as a people, I've heard stories of Grenadians going to America and having to go and work like slaves for white people just so they could get a green card. Remember, most Grenadians that gone to England or America went up there illegal. And we would not have want our family to be put in prison for 11 months, all because they are trying to survive. Nobody would want that. So when you hear something like that is happening to somebody else, stand up. And when somebody like me stand up, don't criticize me. Even if I get it wrong, Don't run me down. Don't make people scared of opening their mouth when they see injustice. We have to speak up. The only person I find that always would speak up or say something is Earl and Brian. And there is another man, Mr. Ali. They would speak and I don't think they care what anybody says. And there is somebody that came on that speaks up as well. We have to speak up. This poor man, can you imagine thinking, when I see a black person, when you're living in a white country and you see a black person, you feel safe. You think, wow, if something happened, you have somebody there that would help you. So I could imagine, because this young man didn't know where he was going. And can you imagine when he come here and he saw black people, he think, wow. And then we start treating him like that. In England, I know when anytime a refugee, somebody come and they want to claim refugee status, when they reach in immigration and they said, I want to seek asylum, immigration have to stop interviewing them. Everything has to stop and they have to treat them as a Grenadian citizen. Now this guy, he will come on. I will get the lady that was running for her life and the refugee to come on. They are willing to come on and to tell you what it's like to leave your family behind. I know, Earl has a young baby and, he's not here and he's telling me all the time how much he's missing his baby. So can you imagine? You live in the other side of the world and you just come in by yourself. You don't know anybody and you just, because you are running for your life. And again, people, this young man does not have to stay in Grenada. So the Grenada government do not have to put them in prison. They are only here for a short while. Once they get their refugee status, the United Nations moved them to a country that would accept them. They're not staying in Grenada. They're only passing through. So we don't have to have them in prison. Take the young man out in prison. I will look after him until he gets his refugee status and he can move on. If they had kept him, look, the other guy got his refugee status within 6 weeks. If we did what we're supposed to do, that young man would have maybe gone to maybe Canada, America, or somewhere, would have accepted him already. They're not staying here. So don't believe we're going to have a whole set of Africans coming here, because I know how we don't like the Africans. They're not staying here. They're just passing through. Don't think I know we would accept the Europeans, but we don't want our people, but please, they're not staying. They're just going through. That man would have maybe gone, has his family with him. This young man, within 6 weeks, he has his refugee status. And with his refugee status by law, he has to be able to work. The Grenadian government has to look after him. They have to give him a job. He has to be treated like a human being, like how I or you or anyone that is Grenadian will be treated. But he's not staying, I would love him to stay because he's a lovely young man. And this is the type of people I would like to see in Grenada. But I said to him, when he asked me, what can he do for me? I said, I don't want you to do anything for me. But one day in your life, you will meet people that need help, just help them. And maybe when you have children, you can tell your children, a stranger helped me. So you know how to pass the kindness on as well.
Ms. McQueen, I actually have a video here of what are the rights of a refugee. Can you guys hear?
Yes,
Throughout history, millions of refugees have benefited from refugee rights and international support. Many owe their lives to the system of international protection. It was after World War II that countries from all over the world agreed to grant fundamental rights to refugees. These rights were established in the 19th relating to the status of refugees. So what rights does this convention provide? One of its most important principles is that people cannot be sent back to their country of origin if this puts them at risk because of conflict or persecution. This principle is known as non-refoulement. Once they have crossed a border, refugees have the right to remain in safety in another country. This right includes more than just physical safety. Refugees should receive at least the same rights and basic help as any other foreigner who is a legal resident. These rights include freedom of thought, of movement, and freedom from torture and degrading treatment. The Refugee Convention also grants refugees social and economic rights in the host country. These include the right to work and to access education, the right to provide for themselves and their families, as well as the right to access health services. Some will be able to return home if the situation in their country becomes safe again. Those who cannot return remain. They can integrate in their host countries and try to get on with their lives. They learn the language, go to school, get a job, and in some cases, they will even become citizens of their host country. Depending on their situation, some refugees may be transferred from a first country of asylum to another country in a process called resettlement. Resettled refugees go through a very rigorous selection process involving UNHCR and the receiving country.
Yeah, Miss Marquin. So for me, like, as I would say, I want quick action. I want action like right now. Like, we have been able to help one individual who was going through that situation, and we need to help other individuals who are going through the situation, because you never know. It could be you. It could be you. So whoever, human rights activists, government, prime minister, head commissioner of police, please look into that matter. People like All Maitland and so on who have been doing the fantastic work of, keeping the story alive and putting out the information and keeping it hot. Because like, let's say for instance how it takes a time to get things done here. And if you don't have anyone here pressing on you consistently to get things done, sometimes it doesn't get done. So, we need the fire to be blazing, and we cannot allow the fire to go down unless that individual is, given a fair opportunity to gain his refugee status and to be able to have access to a life where he does not have to, fear for his life and run away and be in this traumatic situation. We have to, really show the Grenadian hospitality, the warmth and friendliness of the Grenadian people. That same warmth and friendliness we give to tourists and so on when they come down here from the cruise ship. Let's extend that warmth and friendliness to our African brother who needs it desperately right now.
And remember, these people and them, as I said, the war that's been fought it's been fought because of Africa is wealthy. It's been fought because these people because of the French and the English. They're still fighting for the wealth of their country. Remember, the reason why we are here is the same thing. That is the fighting. That's why we were enslaved. Remember, over, I think, 20 million of our ancestors was thrown into the Middle Passage, right? So when you see an African, we have to open our arms and say, come, brother, come, sister. We have to welcome them. When I am in the midst of African, I feel so good. I know the food. Yesterday I was looking on social media and I saw somebody had some really nice Nigerian dish, and people was making comments. And some of the comments that I've heard, I know we wasn't taught our history. But maybe every time we go into America and think, go to Africa. When you go to Africa and you see how Africans live, when you see the wealth in Africa, when you see the beauty in Africa, you would never ever talk down. You would want to go. I think every Black parents that is out there that has children, bring your children to Africa. You would see the beauty of Africa. Africa is beautiful. Africa is the continent that has all creatures that God has created. Africa is the Garden of Eden. what you see in the book, where you see all Africans with big belly and starving. This is not Africa. When you see the beauty, Africa smell, the way Africa smell, the smell of Africa is a smell that is different to anywhere. And I said, I've had the opportunity to travel. Africa has a smell that you do not get anywhere else in the world.
Leslie, are you with us, Leslie?
Yeah,
Oh, oh. 1 second. We have some comments here. Rolanda, by analogy, some Grenadians got refugee status in Canada after the Grenada Revolution. So what's the big fuss? In the United States, some ethnicity get refugee status. As a result, they were propelled to the middle class in a very short time, comparatively speaking. Raphael Arthur was, a refugee don't get to choose where they seek asylum. They should apply at the point of embarkation from the country they are fleeing from. A question, how did he get to Grenada?
He came by air. He gets to Grenada by air. Because remember again, Raphael, most refugees does not even know, this refugee never heard of Grenada. Grenada is, when you look at a map, you don't even see Grenada. If it's just you getting out. If you're running for your life, you don't really care. He had his travel document. Remember, his country is in the Commonwealth. So he came, he came like anybody else, came to Grenada. Like all the other people that was on the plane coming here, he came the same way.
Then we have Bob here again. Bob saying, I don't know the specifics of the case, but putting someone in jail after claiming status is taking it too far, in my opinion.
Bob, there is nothing to it. Exactly what we are telling you, that is what's been told. Because as I said, when I went to get the other refugee out, remember, I didn't know there was a second refugee in prison. I was told that by immigration, and they said to me after COVID, they was going to release him in my care. And I'm waiting with open arms. As I say, I don't want anything from the government. I will look after them. I will give them accommodation, so they're not going to be, we don't have a social security. They don't have to go to NIS and take any of your hard-earned money. All what they have to do, they've got my number, is to just telephone me and say, come, no question asked, and I will pick them up. I know there are people that's been listening, that waiting for COVID to be over. Earl said there was one gentleman that sent help for him, because he said to me, when he saw the case of this young man, he is in America, and he reached out to help because he said he was in that situation, and strangers came out there and helped him out. But as I said, you will be hearing from them. You will be hearing from this young lady that has left all her family behind. And can I tell you something? These people and them, after a while, they have mental issue, Leslie. You could maybe explain more, because they're so far away. And when you see somebody is death, they say we all have to die. But when you see somebody is really facing death, there is a fear that they have that is unbelievable. It's like maybe somebody saying you're going to be. The fear is unimaginable. How could a 25-year-old cannot open a bottle of water? It's like you're thinking, come on, open a bottle of water, come, because it's something easy for you. It's like somebody, if you have good eyesight and somebody want to read something and they say, I need glasses because I cannot see. To see a 25-year-old Kitaka, somebody, younger than you, going like that because they can't open they cannot grasp a bottle. It just shows you, Leslie, the trauma they must have experienced.
Yeah, well, you alluded to that because he is in a perpetual state of alert, fearing for his life, thinking a bomb, a gun, someone might come and kill him at any point in time in his day. So even being here in Grenada, his body and his mind hasn't acclimated to the new environment. He's still very much in his country of origin. So he is shivering in fear because he's in fear. So him moving from that space to Grenada does not remove his mind from what he's experienced. He's still very much in a war-torn country still. So without some interventions, the probability of him being able to open up a bottle by himself anytime soon is really slim because he will still be in that frame of mind. And it sounds like he has PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. So he is very much being triggered by the things that he's witnessed. I'm sure like loud noises, it scares him. The treatment that he received in prison, that also was probably a trigger, and he was very afraid and probably did his best to follow everything that they told him and said to him because he did not want to upset them. He did not want to be harmed. So this young man definitely needs to get help.
There is two questions there that Raphael said, understand he came, how many countries? Raphael, if you traveling, I could travel from here to the end of the world and I don't have to, I could go through, just have a landing visa. So the country, when he came to Grenada, remember we had the Red Cross in Grenada. So the Red Cross was the one acting on behalf, I think, of the UN, United Nations. So when he came to Grenada, he did not go through custom in any other countries. He came to Grenada, and when he came to Grenada, he went to he was looking for a United Nations office. He did not find one. And somebody told him there was one in Trinidad. Somebody bought, so he got a ticket to go to Trinidad. When he got the government, they gave him the pilots his ticket. When he went to Trinidad treated him very, very, very nicely. Trinidad did not call the police. They put him up in a hotel. And he said he could have just walked out of the Trinidad. They put him up in a hotel. But when they looked at his paper, they realized that he had cleared custom in Grenada. And as a refugee, whichever country you clear immigration in, that is the country that's supposed to give you refugee status. Bob also said something, Bob Marisho. Bob, yes, there is a lady in Africa, I can't remember her name, and she did a speech where she said, when she saw what happened to this young man in America, I think this is the one they're hoping that would run the African nation. And she said, she cried, and she said, Africa, your children has been roaming the world. They're going from, the only thing they know about themselves, the only thing we know is about our history goes back as far as slavery. We have such rich history. She said, open the door, Africa. Your children is crying. They want to come home, Africa. Open your door for your children to come in. I know Ghana last year, the year of 400 years, we can go to Ghana. I could book my ticket now. Africa is opening the door and asking his children to come home. Listen, we had a black doctor, an African doctor, that took a baby out of the mother's womb, did surgery on that child and put it back into the mother womb. We're not stupid people. So let us stop treating each other like fools, like we are dull, like we are dumb. We are very bright people. So when we see people coming in, we see another black brother or black sister, let us just think. It's the same time when a white friend was telling me, who is a sailor, she said when they come into the Caribbean, they have a special code where they tell them to be careful of black people. Let us don't have the same type of perception about our own people. When you see somebody and they say that they are African, welcome them. Happy, I cannot wait to go back to Africa to see what village I coming from, to see who my people are. I cannot wait to go to I know Kitaka, you are coming with me. I'm Fante. I cannot go back in Benin. 50% of me is from Benin. I can't wait to go in Benin to go and look for my relatives and them up there. I am so excited. Can you imagine this guy is coming here and thinking, maybe I have some family in Grenada. This is my people, and we take him and we put him in prison. But I believe we will do better. I believe the Prime Minister will hear about it, and I believe hopefully by next week, I will have these 3 refugees sitting down with me and telling all you what they have been through and all what the thing they've read in the books and things like that. It's not true. I really strongly believe, I don't believe they will be there. As Earl says, we are one. We are nice people. We welcome everybody else. Let us welcome our own. They are willing to come on. They want to speak to you. They want to speak to you guys. They want to tell their stories, but we thought, as Kitaka and I sat and we spoke with Leslie, we wanted people to realize a refugee is not a dog.
And I think it's a fitting way to kind of round up as well as we are about to end. And with all statement that we are one and we are brother's keeper. And this is the first of the series. We're going to be having that exclusive interview with the first refugee young man that we were able to get out of the cell at Central Police Station. And hopefully, and not hopefully, we will and we shall get out the Ghanaian who is currently in the prisons right now. We will get him out as well, and you will also hear his story, because we don't give up. We always press on until we succeed with that goal. So for everyone who tuned in with us tonight, we want to say thank you for tuning in on Conversation 473 as always. Miss McQueen, you are on fire tonight.
I hope, guys, I am very passionate about things, and I hope maybe I did not get too many people on their nerves, but I would stand up and fight for any one of you exactly the same way, come what may. That is me, that is why Kitaka could have called me to bail him off.
I hope Mom is not listening right now, but yeah, ladies, thank you so much for all that you shared, and everyone who's been on, Bob, Rafael, Brian, everyone. We'll see you guys on Wednesday, Conversation 473. Kalishta has not been with us for a bit, but she should be back soon. But anyway, stay safe, guys, and let's get to our brothers and sisters out. Let's be our brothers and sisters keeper, and let's share that love and compassion.
And call or write to the Prime Minister's office. There is nothing wrong in sending an email and saying, you hear of that situation and you hope maybe he didn't hear about it, but we hopefully when he hear about it, he will do the right thing. I know he will.
So guys, Leslie, thank you. Have a good night, ladies.
Have a good night.